Well, hello, and welcome. Welcome to another episode of the Imperfect Men's Club podcast. My name is Mark Aylward, and I'm here as always with my good friend, colleague, and co host, Jim Gurley. And once again, we had a pretty, neither one of us came to the table today with a topic that we were hot about. And then what evolved from that is a discussion with some of the work Jim's doing more recently on his own personal brand. Good work, deep work. And then this notion of reinventing oneself became our topic. And so we'll talk about that in the context of one's brand, I suppose, given Jim's experience. And I've been doing some of that work a lot less formally. Um, but it feels like a couple things, Jim. It feels like that's work that's constantly being done. It's like every day you're doing a little bit of that, whether you're conscious of it or not. And then there's another way of thinking about it is that maybe it makes sense for everybody, regardless of age, to take a look at an exercise like this. Whether I coach people, Jim. You know what I do in the career space, and so when someone's looking for work, that's a reinvention process right there. Right, there's a whole story that needs to be told. There's a resume probably or a profile of some kind that needs to be polished up or whatever. So I've actually spent a lot of my life helping people reinvent themselves and mostly around their story. And you and I have talked about that a lot, but bring us into this branding exercise a little bit as it pertains to this whole notion of reinventing oneself.
Yeah, Mark, as you said, this is your business, right? Or it used to be called a resume, that you would prepare for a job position in the hopes that your resume matched up with the job description. And so I'm really interested in hearing your perspective on this, how this has evolved, over the last 20, 30 years, or really let's just get right down to it, the last 10 years or even five years.
Mm-hmm.
And LinkedIn has become the resume of the world for everybody. Uh, and it's available 24/7. So, um, as I was doing, as like all of us, things are changing. My business changes. I'm changing. This is something that we go through probably every 10 years at least, right? What you do, who you are, who you do it for, why do you do it? It's probably more important than ever before because it has to be authentic. It also has to be um, current in terms of who you serve now, which could have been completely different. What I find that's been difficult this time, it's a little different because I have multiple different projects, but it was always more a brand was about the company. Now the brand is about your personal brand, and the framework could be the same, but you're really flushing out that. And when in the pregame we were talking about the difference between this is it's a really interesting exercise and kind of a mind game where you're looking to your past in terms of what your accomplishments were and your credibility. You're trying to present yourself in the present, what you do now, but at the same time, you want to be clear about what your future is and the products and services that you offer. In my case, I have multiple projects, so that can be very confusing because when you're if you don't do this work, then they're not aligned. And like everything, there is alignment. It just takes time to really understand how does this connect to that and this connect to that. So I hired somebody to help me through this process, and he's been fantastic. But it's been a lot of work because it makes you go back and look at what you did and say, okay, is that what I want to project to the world? And how far do you want to go back? Right? Some of the stuff is even relevant, especially at this stage in our life. You don't want to go back too far because that will date you. Um, at the same time, you want to convey your experience and credibility. But I also can make a case that too much experience is not an asset in some fields, and there's some truth to that, right? This goes back to our conversation earlier in regards to what AI can do, and the skill sets and the value that we have um, tomorrow, which is the future versus today. So, but yeah, let's break it down again. Just past, present, and future, and we're constantly um, adjusting our brand to reflect who we are. It's also part of our Imperfect Men's Club podcast framework. These 5 areas of your life, they're going to play out. So the clearer that you get and flush those out, starting first with self awareness, the more effective you can be when you're communicating to people, whether it's on LinkedIn or even one on one.
It's, it really, as you're speaking, I'm reflecting on what I've found over the years that I've been coaching, after the staffing companies were sold and then moving on into the coaching advisory space, I guess, taking all that experience. Because when you prep someone for a job and you interview them to find out what kind of a job they want, and you have all these discussions about how much money they make and what their skill sets are, people are very good at telling you what they do.
Mhm.
They're good at telling you they're very bad at telling you who they are, right? And I
Interesting.
find
Yeah.
I find when I prepare people now in coaching, that's the first step. And it's self-awareness all day long. And then, the self-reflection. And as you suggested when we were talking in the pregame, I think the reason a lot of people don't do this is because of how difficult it is.
Mm-hmm.
It's not one iteration. It's like, here's a piece of clay and I want back the statue of David, right? It's hard, right? And all those inputs and you're and I don't want to presume I know what your emotions were, but when I do these kinds of things, it's sometimes it's a little embarrassing, sometimes it's a little scary, sometimes it's a little, you're asking yourself questions that you may not want the answer to, and having somebody else to help you probably is very helpful, because that person can bring candor and objectivity to something that you might find emotional. But I think if everyone were to do an exercise of this type, regardless of the framework or the complexity of it, just, hey, what am I doing? Who am I? And am I who I want me to be? Am I doing what I want to do? I don't think you'll ever get there if you don't at least ask some of those questions of yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and frameworks, right? Without a framework and somebody else that can guide you through the framework, it's an impossible task, in my opinion. I don't know how people could do it. The framework that we're using for this one is based on the LinkedIn format. Which why would you do anything else, right? And the first uh, thing that you see when you go to somebody's LinkedIn account is their what's referred to as the LinkedIn headline,
Mm-hmm.
and that is the most valuable piece of real estate on the page, because right under your name, uh, whatever you say is going to be your first impression, and
Mm-hmm.
then it has to be something that is compelling, and it has to be something that's relevant to your audience. So just that exercise alone, who is your audience, right? Who are
Mm-hmm.
you talking to?
Yeah,
You
yeah.
can't please everybody. Everybody knows that, right? You try to please everybody, you please nobody.
Mm-hmm.
So then it forces you to get really clear on who's your audience and what do you want to say to them. I find that was probably the most difficult. So remember, we used to have job descriptions. I am a um, I don't know, fireman. I am a car salesman. I am a what was yours, recruiter. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
so even those at this stage in our life needs to get reconfigured or rethought of.
Well, I
Um,
think that what I would recommend is pretend you're going on an interview, pretend you're going
yeah.
out into the world to find work, to get
Hmm.
someone to pay you money.
Hmm.
Um, just pretend. What does that conversation look like? I can't tell you, Jim, how many people I talk to that just start having that conversation with something
Hmm.
on the line without any
Hmm.
preparation at all. And you know why I think people do that is because we all kind of assume I can tell my story. It's my
Hmm.
story,
Yeah.
right? But it's not that simple, you know?
No, it's not,
And
and that's why again this is a good exercise. So first thing underneath your name, you could say who you serve, or you again depending on the strategy or depending on who you're listening to. Some say you would not lead with a name or a title of some kind. You would lead with who you serve, because that's the most valuable real estate, right?
well,
So,
I think the other thing I've heard about that particular area of real estate on LinkedIn that I like is if I engage you, what am I going to get? Like,
That's
what's
right.
what's the
Yeah.
experience? What I'm going to go from this to this? What is that? And can I say that in just a couple of words? And can I say it in such a way that I'm eliciting emotion from
Mhm.
whoever reads it? And I really like that. I can't remember who that was, but that was suggested to me a while back, and I really like the way that sounds. And
Right.
I've played around with mine. Right now, I just say I don't make you money, I make you more valuable because
So
I
here's a then I have a question for you. As it, not as if you were going through somebody's LinkedIn below their name, do you like to know within a few words of what they actually do, a title, or do you like it when they tell you about who you do it for first? Again, this
well,
is I
I
don't think
was
it's a wrong answer here, but I'm
no,
interested in your opinion because yeah, it's a loaded question. Personally, I'd like to kind of know right away what they do, who they are, and then I'll go and want to read more. But some
I
feel the
think
opposite. No, don't tell
yeah,
them that. So I'm interested in
yeah.
your opinion. Yeah.
I think the well, I was visually looking at some fake profile, and I it's amazing to me how important it is to me the image that I see. I mean,
Oh yeah, I
I
forgot
want to
about that.
see I want to see somebody who's got a collared shirt on. I want to see somebody who's smiling. I want to
Hmm.
see somebody who had at least took a little bit of time with the background of the picture, the quality of the
Hmm.
picture. I mean,
Hmm.
so I don't even get to the words and until I get past the
Oh,
first
excellent point,
impression.
Mark. I skipped a part. I skipped probably the most important part. I went straight to the text, but you're right. The background image, the photograph, what the background image says, because
Yeah,
that could
I
be
mean,
copy in the
if
background
yep,
background image.
if
Yeah.
you didn't take the time
Yeah.
to it, and it's clear that you did or did not take the time to give those some thoughtful reflection.
Hmm.
Why would I want to engage you in anything?
Yeah.
So I just that's where my
Interesting.
mind went when you asked me the question.
Yeah.
And then it just becomes, I want to get to, well, what do I think this person can do for me? It
Hmm.
becomes selfish,
Yeah.
right? And I think you could have that discussion and you could make a case for either approach. But
Hmm.
yeah, I think the when I get into my work with anybody, it doesn't matter who they are. They're contemplating some change of some kind, or they're not
Hmm.
satisfied with their current circumstances in some fashion. And the only way to get to that is doing probably a lot of the work that you did with this guy, and that's just go deeper, just go deeper. Say
Hmm.
that differently. Use keep talking, keep flowing with that thought right there. Just no wrong answers. Just keep going,
Hmm.
and you get to the essence of something, in my experience, you got to go like 5 levels deep,
Oh, at least. Yeah.
minimum, minimum,
Minimum.
right?
Yep. Yep.
That's a that that works havoc on your brain,
Yeah.
and your emotions. And so when I do it with people, it's always if whether it's a Zoom call or over the table at Starbucks or whatever, you can see their body change. You can see their face change because
Hmm.
what they're doing is they're recognizing things that they either forgot or they never noticed to begin with.
Hmm.
Like that's a strength of yours and you're not even claiming it, right?
Yeah.
Whatever
That's
it
so
might be.
true. Yeah.
It's like a psychology exercise, you
Yeah,
know?
it really is. It's as much that than it is anything else. But right. So and then you're self-conscious. There's all kinds. There's imposer um,
Yeah, who the hell do you think
thoughts.
you
Yeah, yeah.
are?
There's all kinds of mind games we play with ourselves. But let's this again. I'll use mine. It's a good example. But so these words I had to describe. Remember, it's past, present, and future, right? So now on the headline, right below your name, you could say who you serve, or you could say your what you do in one, two, three, four. So like five areas you can describe it. So in my case, my focus has always been on innovation. So I'm an innovation agent. That's the first one. The
Mm-hmm.
second one, AI strategist, because I'm a big believer in AI. I think it's going to change the world. So strategy, people need strategy,
Mm-hmm.
an AI strategy. Advisor, because I do consulting, but I like the word advisor. I don't want to use the word consulting. That
Hmm.
typically
Hmm.
means you're out of a job, right? Um,
Hmm.
the word inventor, because I am an inventor. And then I put podcaster in because that's what we do. That's a big part of my week. It's what we do, right? As a
Yeah,
co-host.
I gotta tout that a little bit more.
Well,
I love.
yeah, again, this is my opinion. I believe you do. You have to tell people right away the things that you do in simple terms.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
if you don't, then you're making them read stuff that they maybe don't even want to read. Like, what's this guy do? So, and then my last
Well,
one is speaker because
yep.
I I get I've been paid to speak and I'd like to do more of that. So
Yeah. Yeah.
that was the approach I took, and so far it's held up. It's a week or two now, and I still like it. And
Yeah,
then,
I think the challenge for you, and we've talked about this,
mhm,
it's a challenge for everybody, but particularly you because of your eclectic background, is to
mhm.
not confuse people, you know.
That's the key.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I think
and
the conciseness of this, whatever your message is, and I do this with everybody. It's
yeah.
always what I get when I start asking people questions about who they are to
Hmm.
get ready for whatever change I'm trying to be an agent for. Maybe
Hmm.
they want to start their own business. Maybe they want a new job. Maybe they want a
Yep.
promotion. Maybe they just need to move. I don't know. But
Yeah.
it's all starts, and it's just like, it's astounding to me how ignorant people are
Hmm.
of telling their own story. But I was curious,
Hmm.
why did you decide to pay someone? Because that means you reached a purposeful seriousness of purpose. You're like, I'm ready to spend money, and I know it's going to take time, so I'm going to invest my money and my time.
Hmm.
Was there an event? Was it a series of events? Was it an evolution? When did you make that decision?
Yeah, no, it's an important question because it was an important decision when I realized that it- I'm a big believer in an agent, right? Somebody that can get perspective about your value to the world. And I realized I was just too close to it.
Hmm.
So when I started to do all these other things, my old LinkedIn profile did not reflect who I was. It
Hmm.
wasn't even that well done in the past. So I had to get clear with that, and to hire somebody when you pay them money, especially, you know, not a huge amount of money, but in the thousands, you have a tendency to it creates a deadline, and it creates accountability.
Hmm.
And so that was the main reason. And I trusted his background and what he was doing. And so far, again, it's worked out really well. It's a lot harder than I expected it to be because he's
Did you prepare for him, or did you send him the things he asked for?
well, he sends me uh, these tasks and homework, and then I have to complete them, and then we speak once a week, and then we go back and forth and back and forth, and then
Yeah.
ultimately, obviously it's my decision what I want to put up there, but he uses the LinkedIn framework, um, so that when we're writing this out, it immediately can be posted, and then that's
Right.
what you become, and
No,
that's really
that's
how it
smart.
goes, right? That's what we're projecting out to the world, whether we think about it or not. But going
Yeah.
through the process was as much for me to get clear on what I want to focus on and who my audience is, because I do so many things. It even becomes difficult for me to keep up with all these different, and also I'm a big believer in language. Well, we do have language. Keywords are super important. If you could reuse the same word and then apply it to other things that you do in life,
Hmm.
that's easier for people to comprehend. And with this, especially now, because there's going to be so much information with AI. I think the effective people will be the best communicators because they use common language,
Hmm.
and then it makes it really easy for people to understand, easier to understand
Yeah.
what you
Yeah.
do and who you do it for. So
Yeah.
yeah, that was the reason. I tried to do it myself and failed in the past, and I just got to the point now where it was time to do that. So
Yeah, that's good. That's good. I think there's a lot of that's a rich answer. And I
yeah,
think I like the words comment because that's, I
yeah,
like to communicate. I like to fancy myself as a good communicator. And certainly,
yeah,
and certainly communication is
yeah.
an integral part of what I do.
Yeah. There's
Not
something
only,
else you'd be interested in, Mark. I also believe that words could become dated very quickly. So if you're using a language of old terms, uh, it dates you as in you're not relevant. And so that's the other uh, was the other main goal, was to make sure I wasn't using words that really don't reflect who I am, and then
Yeah.
update the words. Like I said, I've got this thing about consulting is overused in my opinion. It doesn't mean you don't consult, but an advisor is different sometimes, or can be different. So
Well, I think it would seem to me that the most important part about that word selection would be the modern component of it, but
yep.
also does it come out of your mouth authentically? Is it
Hmm.
really who you are? Because
Hmm.
if you don't like the word consultant, I mean, I worked with consultants my whole life. You know, I employed them.
Hmm.
I paid them an
Hmm.
hourly wage and put them out at clients, and we called
Hmm.
them consultants and we called them contractors. So those words mean very different things to me than they do to you, right?
They do, right, in different
I have
industries. Yeah.
consultant in high esteem, right?
Hmm.
And so that's just another interesting example of perhaps there isn't a right or wrong thing. I think the most important part when I teach someone how to tell his story, the number one most important part is it authentic? Is
Hmm.
are you posing or are you being who you are? And now the other
Yeah.
thing, and this is when you take your authenticity out into the market, the other thing is, you know, is it concise, right? Because
Hmm.
you're often not
Yep.
going to have a whole lot of time to get your first impression across. And so when I talk to people, I give
Hmm.
them, let's tell the story that you would tell in an interview when you have 30, 40, 50 minutes. Okay. That's a long story. And everything else we need is in that story. So we're going to pull
Hmm.
other stuff out of the story, but we've got to get that one right. Then we're going to go to the elevator cliche and we're going to go, okay, what are the two or three sentences if you had a minute and you know, it wasn't just a boom, you know, taglines type of thing.
Hmm.
Well, that three sentences is in the bigger story. And then the third piece is kind of more like what you're talking about on that headline. It's like 3 words, 2 words, 4 words, just like boom. Who are you? Boom, right? And I
Yep.
people get that's so hard for people to do. It's ironically I do it for a living and it's hard for me to do. So it's just hard.
Hmm.
And that's why I think that for anybody listening that's resonated with this reinvention concept, I think don't expect it to be easy. It's not complex, but it's difficult,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah, and then also get clear on what your goal is, right? What
Yeah.
is the main objective? Why are you doing it, and what do you want out of it? This is what I refer to the future.
Mm-hmm.
Is it a certain type of client you want? Is it? It doesn't even have to be money related. It could be philanthropy. It could be a cause or a mission.
Mm-hmm.
Even that well, there's not money exchange does require a good brand essence of for you to be believable and authentic. You have to document that and make that available for people to understand, so they can make a decision whether they want to work with you. So it's
Yeah.
interesting
And
because it's some of these things initially start off as it's all business, and then it's not, because a lot of the stuff I do is it doesn't I don't get paid for it. Not a lot of stuff, but my role with the National Kitchen and Bath Association is a volunteer position. The work that I do with my high school and the community I grew up in, those I'm not being compensated for that. I get
right.
compensated another way, but it's not financial compensation. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'll read this, and again, this is first draft, so it hasn't been finalized, but we'll just use an example. But yeah, I empower business owners, high performance individuals, and organizations to drive growth and alignment professionally and personally by creating and implementing innovative tools and frameworks that position them to thrive. So a lot there, right? But I'm also speaking to individuals to do individual coaching through the podcast, something we both talked about doing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Offering the ability to work with individuals that want to live a high performance life. And after now, what, third 3 seasons and 100 episodes,
Mm-hmm.
um, that's a that's a service that we know has a demand for it. So I'm focusing on high performance individuals.
No,
Um,
it's great. It's great.
yeah,
It
yeah,
sounds really good, and I think it reeks of authenticity. It also is probably something that you'll refine a little bit here and there over time
absolutely.
as you assess the impact of it
Yeah.
is it getting done what you want it to be getting done? The other
Yeah.
thing that
Yeah. What
strikes
you
me, Jim,
just go, yeah, go.
uh,
No, just to add what you're saying, this may only last 30, 60 days.
yeah.
That is the difference. This is not forever, right? This is an online living piece of information. So to your point, to go in and adjust it and tweak it, every 30, 40 days is the right thing to do. But to leave it there for 2 or 3 years and not touch it,
Well,
that's
yeah,
that's
but I
that's a
think the
bygone
work,
era.
yeah, the work that you're talking about there, though, would be what I referred to, excuse me, as nuance.
Yep.
you're not going to rebrand yourself every 30, 60 days, but you're going to take a look at it. Is it concise? Is it impactful? Is it getting people to take action?
Hmm.
The other pieces of this, and I'll go back to my own example of coaching people in professional development or leadership, is you made the point earlier. I claim this all the time because I feel like I have to, but I've never helped anybody professionally that I didn't also help personally. And
Hmm.
I think that's more like the wheel, right? It's like the notion of
It is.
you can't touch this without impacting that, right?
Yeah.
It's impossible. So don't try, don't apologize for it. Just understand
Yeah.
where the boundaries are, because there is such a thing as too much information. But
Yeah.
if I don't have an intimate knowledge of how you make decisions and what's important to you, I can't be effective with you, you know?
Yeah. Mark, that statement really was the inspiration to this podcast. It was a combination of things, but that was one of the main um, reasons that we decided to create the framework and do the podcast because I remember you saying that I help people with their careers, but I often end up in these other areas of their life because if I don't get that right, then I can't get them the best match or the best company or put the best value on them. So what you just said, again, a lot of what I'm doing now is comes from that. But we
Yeah,
spent
it's
we spent what 2 days whiteboarding this, and then
mhm,
eventually, fast forward 2, 3 years later, and 100 episodes later, we have this framework. But it was because of your mission, kind of what you do, whether
mhm.
you're getting paid for it or not, right? To help others become the best version of themselves.
Yeah,
That's
I can't tell you how many marriage counseling sessions I've been in, how many parenting sessions I've been in. Can you help me with my teenager?
yeah, yeah.
But
Yeah,
it's fun.
and well, you gotta be careful because, like you said, you can't fix all the everybody's problems and by getting them a job,
Hmm.
but it's related. So yeah, that was so the my focus now too though is this is also I think the world needs wisdom, not a more advice and consulting wisdom at this stage in our life as a advisor to businesses. We don't have all the answers. I don't claim I have all the answers, but I have decades of experience of stuff that is timeless in terms of, and I find that especially second generation businesses, they're constantly looking for ways to improve their businesses, and it's very lonely. So that's my focus now is to help those business owners that really want to take their business to the next level through the technologies. The other difference is for the first time I'm talking about how my dyslexic brain
Hmm.
functions differently. So, right in my headline, first of all, I can identify individual business owners, then high performing individuals like our audience, and then the other one is organizations. Whether that's the National Kitchen Bath Association, a school district, others. So, I did a huge event last night. Actually, we had 4 associations. You know, associations that can have impact on industry or communities.
Hmm.
That's
Hmm.
in my wheelhouse now, even though that those don't always relate to direct compensation. I can have a greater impact, and then eventually, if there's a monetization model attached to it, it obviously increases in my my exposure and my expertise in that field. So,
The other, no, that sounds exciting.
mhm,
I'm appreciate you sharing all that. The other
mhm,
thing that I wanted to get out before we wrap up is this idea that most of the people that I come in contact with, in this contemplative stage of what to do next or why, they don't give themselves credit for all the things they can do. They consider themselves who they are and what they do based on usually the opinion of someone else, a previous supervisor or a boss, or maybe even all the way back to college. But people get lost in this world where, like, I'm a project manager in the healthcare space right now, so my next job is going to have to be a project manager in the healthcare space. No, it's not, because I will tell you 80% of what you do can transfer into almost any other job around. So let's
Mhm.
and I'm sure you did some of this too. Let's start pulling out of that job what you do really well. Then let's start pulling out
Well,
what you really love to do, and the things that you do really well enough that you could actually teach someone else how to do it. Okay. And
yeah.
the deeper you go into that conversation, the closer you'll get to who you are.
So Mark, you'll appreciate this. This is exactly what the next is. So I'm on my screen now. The first line is your headline. We just covered that, right? Right below that is your LinkedIn about section. I'll read mine, but it's exactly what you're saying. So you take some of the information because they have a general idea what you do. Now you get more specific. This is the about section,
Mm-hmm.
and in my case, again, I use this. It's a draft, but it's close. As an innovation agent, AI strategist, and advisor, I work with business owners, high performance individuals. So you're kind of repeating it, and it says, then you go. My approach centers on creating and implementing innovative tools and frameworks. Right, that's kind of my thing. I need frameworks for myself because that's
Mm-hmm.
the tools I use. That aligns their vision and actionable strategies, position them to adapt and thrive in the. And then the sentence after that is this is where you get more um, um, focused, or to your point, what makes you different than everybody else, right? What
Mm-hmm.
sets my approach apart is a cognitive strength rooted in 3D spatial reasoning, a unique ability to connect concepts, ideas, and others often can't see. This innate ability associated with my dyslexic mind, and then just goes on to say, my ex- industry expertise, and then some language about visualizing complex problems and innovation. So, but yeah, just to what you said, you have to tell them what you do, and then tell them why you're unique
Yes.
in how you do
Yes.
it.
Well, you know what you've
And
also done there, at least to me, is I want to talk to this guy. He sounds
that's
interesting.
yeah, that's the no. I'll just finish up because it's part of the framework. So then you go. The last one is beyond. Yeah, and then this is where like the podcast comes to this, right? So beyond uh, strategy, I bring ideas to life as an inventor and share actionable insights as a podcaster and speaker. So now all of a sudden, if you want to listen to me, listen to my podcast once a week. And then if you want to hire me to speak, you can do that too. And then you break it down into three more bullet points, more specific. As an innovation agent for business owners, I help forward thinking companies, blah, blah, blah. But so you two more bullet points back to your audience, right? My audience is business owners. And then the second one is high performance individuals. I use a combination of proven proprietary frameworks to help individuals gain clarity, self awareness, and alignment to become the best version of themselves. What's our podcast? Right, that's in the middle of our framework is self, and it starts
Yep.
with self
Yep.
awareness. And
No,
then the
it's
last one is innovation agent. I help develop strong cultural teams, big picture thinking, blah blah blah, and then it goes on to talk about um, the work I did for the NKBA, my national championships of building teams, and so on and so on. So, when it's done, you've said a lot of stuff in this, very limited amount of words that LinkedIn allows you to limit you to speak to as they're scrolling down the screen. It's
yeah, the and I'm sure that you were informed by this agent of yours that you got to practice this story. It's got to polish it up and practice it.
yeah.
But yeah, I think that my favorite words out of the whole podcast episode right now are clarity and authenticity.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that people are not clear; they're unclear. That's why I got my T-shirt that says, "What do you mean by that?"
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so it's beholden of us as advisors with our prospects and clients to be clear and to
Mm-hmm.
be authentic. And I think that, but overall, I'll end my side of it with this. That is, I think it's an exercise everyone should do. And if you've
No
never done
question.
it, if you've never done it, it's going to be intimidating. So just
Mm-hmm.
expect that fear and just jump over it or jump around it or kick the door down or whatever you got to do. But I also have always told people, particularly more introspective people or shy people, you could talk this out in a mirror. Watch yourself say it. Sit down with someone who's objective and ask them to read it, ask them to listen to it, to record it and play it back and hear what it sounds like. No one does those things, and those things I think are how you anchor this thing.
Mark, I'm laughing because this is we have to have one good disagreement, otherwise it wouldn't be a good podcast. I couldn't disagree with you more about that. I think that if you ask the wrong person for feedback, it could skew your. It's probably the worst thing you can do is ask a friend, somebody too close to you that doesn't understand your industry.
Well, that's why I use the word objective.
Well, no, this is this, and it also answers your first question to me. Why did you hire somebody? Because I wanted somebody completely independent that I didn't know
Yep.
do this.
Yep.
I have made the mistake, and I've paid a dear price for it, asking good friends, uh, family members, my own wife about what they think of this. That's the worst person because they see you as your past, maybe your present, but certainly don't see your future like you do. So yeah, I just could not. I think it's a great way to end it, right?
Well, I think the caveat for me would be the selection of the person you're speaking of, and if somebody doesn't have the ability to drop a few grand on an objective third party, and they're left to their own, their own
yeah, I see what you're saying. Good point. Yeah,
duties. But
yeah.
I'll leave. I got one more nugget here because I did this exercise a while back and it was a fantastic
Hmm.
exercise. And someone suggested it and I did it. And that was, I sent an email out to about 10 colleagues, people I know
Hmm.
really well.
But
Uh,
colleagues, not friends and family,
Not
just
friends and
business
family.
colleagues.
No,
Great.
colleagues, people that worked for
Yeah.
me, with me, I worked for, whatever, my mentor, different
In the
people
past. Yeah.
in the past. And I said, tell me
Yeah.
what you think my superpower is,
Mm.
and send me back an email as soon as you can. Don't call me. I want to capture it in text.
Yeah.
Just do a brain dump. Give it 5 minutes. I got back
Yeah.
some of the most fantastic words. It was supportive, it was kind, it was concise. There was some criticism in there, but not much. I found that exercise
That's great.
phenomenal.
Yeah,
You
that's
know,
a strategic coach. That's a Dan Sullivan. Actually, your unique ability. It's one of the in his book, Your Unique Abilities. That's one of
mhm.
the exercises that he does. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe it trickled down from him to somebody
Yeah.
else that I
Good
was
stuff.
following. But no, great
Good
stuff.
stuff.
Thanks for sharing that,
Yeah.
Jim.
All right, more.
Talk to you next
Until
week.
next week.